Hello, this is Desiree Dubonnet from the International Medical University of Natural Education. Today we're going to have a little topic about gluten. We worked with Novak Djokovic, and he was able to get to the pinnacle of tennis. Made an unbeaten streak of 43 games in 2011. Here he is beating Nadal in Madrid.
You mentioned the gluten, yeah, something that emerged recently. He discovered his allergy to it, so he's had to change his diet.
Yeah, and you and I were scrambling to find out what gluten was all about. In the very basic, just saps you of energy. Doesn't allow you to sort of absorb the minerals and the good things you need to operate at optimal efficiency. And that was always a problem with him, finishing long matches.
Novak had a real problem with his health, and one of our doctors from the International Medical University worked with him, was able to fine-tune him with the help of the SKIO and with diet and nutrition and natural medicine, making sure that we got him clean and got his body depleted of all the inflammatories and made it so that his oxygenation would be superior and he'd be able to last on the long matches or even the elevations, like here in Madrid. With their help, we were able to help him. This is a little thing that I taught him how to do the warrior spot. Let's now talk about gluten.
Most people would look at you and say, "Oh, what?" if you talked about a gluten-free diet. But now, not only do people know what it is, they swear by it, and some are even using a gluten-free diet to help heal other health problems. So what exactly is gluten, and why is it so problematic? Well, here to answer those questions is nutritionist Janet Little. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good morning.
I feel like I'm learning so much already about a gluten-free diet. Gluten is actually, it's a wheat product. It's a protein in a wheat product that people can be allergic to. Is that correct?
Yes, and also it's not just wheat. It's also in barley and rye, and our oats, they tend to be contaminated with wheat. So if, you want to stay away from gluten, it's amino acid. It's what makes bread nice and gooey. So it kind of helps, it's kind of a binder.
And people can have an allergy to it or intolerance to it. There's actually, is it celiac?
Yes, it's a disease, literally a disease, where your own body, it's an autoimmune disorder. And when you have gluten, your immune system literally attacks your intestinal system. And of Americans, 1 out of every 133 Americans have celiac, and 80% don't even know it.
Don't even know it. And one of the reasons is we just kind of take it for granted when we eat something that has a lot of wheat in it. If, for instance, you have an intolerance or celiac, you just kind of feel icky and bloated and lethargic, and it just doesn't feel good after you eat. And we just kind of write that off as maybe eating too much, or...
That's true, because, like I said, a lot of people don't even know they have celiac, or they could be sensitive to gluten. So your autoimmune system may not be attacking your body, but if you're sensitive to it, then yeah, you're going to feel icky afterwards.
So it might be worth it trying some products that are gluten-free, and now a lot of the health food stores carry quite a wide range of gluten-free, and you brought in some of the products people can look for and give them a try. And I want to ask you in just a second, after we look at some of the products, a lot of parents who have autistic children are turning to gluten-free diets.
Yeah, because they find that the gluten actually attacks the brain cells. And so autistic children that may be attention deficit or hyperactivity, they find improvement when they pull them off of a gluten diet.
That's very interesting. We are what we eat. Okay, what are some of the items we have choices? Oh, I have to start with this because I'm going to have to taste it. You were telling me that there hasn't been an option of pretzels for anyone who is gluten intolerant because of what pretzels are made of.
Pretzels are pure wheat, refined white flour.
And now there are potato pretzels.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring these because they are so good. And like I said, sometimes we need crunchy and salty. Aren't those really good? Yeah, okay, I'll keep talking.
Those are good.
Well, also, too, a while back, unfortunately, parents or people with celiacs or trying to stay off of gluten were kind of stuck with having to make things at home with, like, soy flours, with quinoa. You had to make stuff at home. Where now it's really nice because they're coming out with more,
convenient products.
Convenient products, this chicken Alfredo. Oh my gosh, before that was packed with wheat. Right. And then, now they're coming out with rice noodles, corn, pastas.
Now the texture has to be different because if it's a binding protein, then this has probably got a completely different texture.
It is a little different. Although the corn, I love to buy the corn pastas. Those, I feel, have a really good flavor to them. But you are right. It just, after, you know, a little bit it takes to get used to.
You have to get used to it, like anything else.
Yes,
Any change in your diet, you
Just
have
a
to get
little
used
bit.
to it. And there's some even, like soups. So if you're on the run or, you know, you have to eat out and you can't drive through and get a cheeseburger.
No, you can't.
This is a nice option.
Yes. And speaking of that, even restaurants now, some of the restaurants have a gluten-free menu. And which is great because eating out in America is very hard because even cooking on the same pan as something that had wheat on there, celiacs can't even have that.
Wow. So you can go to a Henry's Market, to a Boney's, or if there are Boney's anymore, or kind of a Whole Foods market and get a lot of these items.
Yep.
And again, look for the menu items when you're out and about because that can make a difference. And then give it a try. Who knows? You might have, you know, feel a lot better after you.
Well, in order to detoxify from gluten, unfortunately there are no remedies or quick fixes. It's basically just time. If my son ingests gluten, it basically takes 48 to 72 hours, and he's usually rendered with diarrhea. He sweats profusely. He has a difficult time sleeping. These are pretty much symptoms of someone who would be detoxifying from maybe some kind of a substance, a drug of some sort. So it has the same reaction on the body. You're removing a toxin, and it's trying to come out of the body. With children, irritability is a major factor because they have stomach aches and they don't have any appetite whatsoever. So if he ingests even a little bit of gluten, it's 72 hours of basic hell for him. With an adult, they're going to experience more of the gastrointestinal problems as well, and bloating would be a big thing, diarrhea, and severe abdominal pain. Some people actually have to call out of work if they've contacted gluten because of the severe abdominal pain. So it's definitely something you don't want to come in contact with, and that's why you have to be so stringent as to how to read food labels so that it doesn't enter your body by accident. I can't stress the importance of planning when it comes to having anybody in your household that is gluten-free. First of all, if you're going to a barbecue, for instance, you can't just rely on the fact that they're going to have gluten-free hot dogs or hamburgers there. So you have to take your little Ziploc and put your food in it and bring cold pack and bring that with you. So it's all about planning. A long-distance vacation is even more daunting because you're going to have to pack a whole entire bin of things, possibly looking this big for a couple days because, you know, you're traveling with spices and all kinds of frozen goods and things so that your gluten-free child can actually eat while you're on vacation. Amusement parks are notorious for not having anything whatsoever that, with the exception of Disney, actually Disney World has a gluten-free menu in a lot of their restaurants. But if you're going to your typical neighborhood carnival, do not expect to find anything that is gluten-free. So you have to bring snacks. You have to have them in the car. You have to bring them. And it'll just make your child's life easier as well as your own.
About the 10 foods we should not eat. Food number one,
high-fat luncheon meats. High-fat luncheon meats, that's right.
High-fat luncheon meats.
The University of Southern California, they did a study a few years ago, and they said that children who eat 3 hot dogs a week have 9 times, I'm slowing down, 9 times the risk of leukemia versus children who do not. Now remember, the leading cause of death in children aged 14 and under, other than accidents, is cancer. The leading type of cancer is leukemia. And the University of Southern California says 3 hot dogs a week, 9 times the risk of leukemia. So friends, if you don't hear anything else I say, please feed your children right. We have tremendous resources available to you today which specifically deal with childhood nutrition. Sharon and I have 4 children. We've been married for 25 years. And we've been blessed to have super healthy children, but we make sure that we feed the kids the right food on an ongoing basis because we realize our children's health is our responsibility. It's not their responsibility. You haven't. My 5-year-old doesn't jump in the car and go to the health food store or the junk food store and buy junk food and bring it home. If we bring good food home, they eat good food. We bring bad food home, they have to eat bad.
2 diet sodas, Cokes, All that is bad.
Yeah.
What's in them that is so bad?
The aspartame.
Aspartame,
Oh.
and it does what to the body?
Well, it's been linked to brain tumors, brain cancer, seizures, headaches, optic nerve degradation. It causes memory loss. It causes depression. It messes up serotonin levels in the brain. It's unbelievably bad. I can't tell you how bad diet sodas are.
Then you talked about
Margarine.
Trans fats. Trans fats. Then you talk about shellfish.
That's right.
Which are bad. Then all the cookies and the
Junk food.
Junk
High
foods.
fructose corn syrup. That's right.
And you covered
Number
all
6 to stay away from is interesting because it's almost in everything. It's MSG, monosodium glutamate. When you look at a lot of, in fact, they had Senate meetings on this a few years ago trying to force the manufacturers to label it because it contains a compound, monosodium glutamate, called glutamic acid. Glutamic acid in neurochemistry is called an excitotoxin. It overstimulates brain cells, gives you terrible headaches when you get food if you're allergic to MSG, and it kills your brain. It actually eats holes in your brain, glutamic acid.
Well, stay with that a second and explain that.
Monosodium glutamate is added as a flavor enhancer.
And it comes in chips.
It comes in chips, and so the government Chinese food. A lot of times you go to a Chinese restaurant, you need to ask them, do you use MSG in your food? And a lot of them have right on the door, no MSG used, because there's so many people get really bad headaches from it. If I just get a taste of it, I get a tremendous headache. Because remember, the MSG, the glutamic acid, is an excitotoxin. It eats holes in the brains of the laboratory animals it's tested on.
God.
See, so here's the problem that we run into. People say, well, we're not a laboratory animal. Well, that's true. But the problem is this. Excitotoxins damage neural tissue. We know that. Here's the problem with trying to do a double-blind clinical research study using human beings. You can never get it past the board to get it approved. There's no way we can try to intentionally eat holes in a human being's brain or cause brain cancer in somebody because they won't approve it. They won't do that. And so that's why we have to use the animal studies when these products are so poisonous, they do this. And that's the importance of the animal studies and what they do. Number 7 is chlorine in the water supply. Chlorine and fluoride. Both chlorine and fluoride are deadly poisons. They used chlorine gas in World War I to kill people with. And when we were at Florida State and we were in organic chemistry, if we produced a chemical that released chlorine gas, we'd have to use a vented hood they call a vacuum hood because they didn't want the chlorine getting in the room because you could die from it, one good whiff. And see, we put it in the water to kill bacteria, but we shouldn't put it into our bodies because it kills our bodies too. The same thing with fluoride. Fluoride is a byproduct of aluminum production and it's used as rat poison. So many people don't understand how important it is to maintain your health and to do the right kind of food. In many cases, you can determine the state of a person's health by looking in their medicine cabinet. You can find anti-cough medicines, decongestants, antacids, inhalers, tranquilizers, aspirins, sedatives, painkillers. We have over 30 million people taking the drug Prozac. I told people 20, 25 years ago that Prozac caused children to commit suicide. And nobody believed me. And they thought I was crazy. I said, no, this stuff really messes up serotonin levels. So finally, a couple of years ago, the Food and Drug Administration forced the manufacturers to put a black box warning with the strongest warning you can have on there, stating it causes suicidal behavior in many patients and children. Now, how sad is that? And so here we have a drug that we can use omega-3 fats like cod liver oil, which is one of the best things you can take for moderate to mild forms of depression. It almost can cure everybody with that problem by taking one product. Omega-3 fats, with old-fashioned, natural cod liver oil, which we talked about yesterday. I can't mention, we only found one brand that works, but it works very, very well at that. And people don't understand how important it is to put the right nutrients in your brain, put the right nutrients in your body, and you feel and you look good every single day.
So here we have the idea. This is what happens to gluten. You see, gluten sensitivities will minimize the absorptive capability inside the stomach by smoothing out the cells. Same thing happens when people eat too much hot fluid. It can have the same effect and produce celiac. You need to start looking at the labels and finding out what has grain in it. They're starting to get to a gluten-free shopping. This is what we need to do with the celiac people. Here's some of the foods that you can eat. You can have a very good diet. And a lot of people have associated gluten with making us fat because sensitivity. And there's a direct correlation to autism. Autistic children do not have the ability. They need to have a more fresh diet like this. So try some of these techniques and get information from the different books. I'm the Angel, signing off.